My grandmother disappeared in 1981. My grandfather's never stopped looking for her. There's a tone in Mill Creek that haunts the bones, and it wanders through the trees around this town. It's taken other people too. My grandpa and I built a machine to follow it. Strange things happen here. Murders in light, brilliance in shadows. I'm Orin, and this is Wave Glass. Two days after our lunch at Fox's Forge, Gordon rolled into Mill Creek. That Friday morning arrived crisp and dry for once. Oregon seemed to really enjoy lulling you into thinking winter was over, just so it could smack you with ice the next day. But that day felt like spring had finally won the argument. It would have been a perfect day if not for everything we were about to do. Gordon showed up just after 10, wearing his easy grin and carrying enough gear to put on a show. We let him in, made coffee, some of Grandpa's finest, and took him straight to the basement gallery. He spent at least a half hour just looking at the paintings, pacing and staring, speechless. Like me, he was blown away by them, and by the carved tetrapod in the center of the room. That thing was really growing on me. It was like a pet from a past life or something. It felt familiar. "My God," he said. "Mr. Des, you are a master. And, I don't say that lightly." My grandpa smiled and said, "Thank you, Gordon, and please call me Everett. It means a lot that you came." He paused, then dropped it like a stone into still water. "I told you I lost my wife to this thing, happening like it does. I've been searching for her for a long time. We laid it all out. The resonance engine, our maps, our scrawled notes and charts, the recordings." Gordon took it all in with that strange mix of amusement and awe. "I have to say I'm fascinated and bewildered. Could I see that map again?" He held it up, squinting and chewing on some thought. He would lean forward like he was going to say something, and then lean back again, caught in a mental tide. "We need to find out if Mill Creek sits on a convergence of plates." Plates?" I asked. "Salad plates? Plate reverb?" And Gordon snorted. "No, I mean fault lines. The kind that shift and quake. Faults generate infrasonic waves, low and weird. There is some science around that. Maybe something's resonating under this place." He traced the map with his finger as his eyes narrowed. "If this marrow is coming from space, I reckon it's getting caught in Mill Creek, bouncing around in here." He sounded like he was trying to convince himself more than us. "And hey, see this," he said, shifting the map again. "Mill Creek's kind of like a satellite dish. No, more like one of those scalloped deviled egg trays, only sharper. It's a crater, sure, but it's surrounded by these concave V-groove valleys feeding into it. Its natural geometry reminds me of a fractal." Grandpa and I had never looked at the lay of the land that way. We'd thought about the acoustic weirdness in places like Speechless Stewart, tucked in its own little echo bubble. But Gordon just waltzed right into the big picture with that one word, fractal. "And that cult house y'all went to," he said, "had a granite and silver chamber under it? Any other caves in Mill Creek?" "Not that I know of," I said. "Well, that chamber is a resonance amp. Big one. I bet anywhere else in town where weird shit's gone down has something like it. Combine one of those with the marrow, that magic y'all talking about." He looked up from the map, his eyes alight now.
"Oh, shit.
"It's driving people insane." Speaking of insane, there's more. I handed him Grandpa's painting of Fenar. While Grandpa began his explanation, I went to grab the fractal crystal. I handed it to Gordon as he finished. And Gordon laughed. "Bullshit," he said, his eyes wide as he rolled the thing between his fingers. "No way. This is from Fenar. And y'all went there?" He held the crystal up to the light. "Can we go?" "Go? Well, yeah, let's go check it out." Here we were, being reckless again. But the truth was, I was just as curious as Gordon. And Grandpa, he hadn't suffered any visible ill effects from his trip across the universe. He documented everything. We had the formula, the steps, the precautions. Last time, fear had just stopped us. This time, Gordon's easygoing enthusiasm made it feel possible. But what if we show up somewhere else? I asked. Or it's daytime and we get fried by that blue star. I don't know, Grandpa said. That lacy stuff felt fungal. Maybe it dies in the light? Or maybe it's like that black fungus that feeds on radiation. That's a thing, you know. Let's just go, Gordon said, almost laughing. Real quick, in and out, just a peek. Just real quick, I muttered. A phrase that rang all kinds of internal alarms. The kind that lives in your bones. Still, we packed. Rations, water for the resonance engine, backup supplies in case we couldn't get back, Tupperware for samples, soil, rocks, lacy filigree, whatever we found, and of course the fractal alien broccoli crystal. Grandpa slung his good camera over his shoulder, and that was that. We were going back. We gathered around the resonance engine and reached to touch it as one. The moment my finger met the surface, disorientation swept over me. Like the feeling I'd had beneath the Braden house. Then blackness, stillness, warmth. When my eyes adjusted, the soft blue day peep of the alien star crept in, just like Grandpa's painting. It felt unreal, not terrifying, just dreamlike, like we'd slipped into the stillness between thoughts. For a long time, maybe 15 minutes, Gordon and I just stood on the crystal shore, our eyes wide and our minds blank. The scene anchored our gaze, but it was the delicate chime of the surf that really rooted me. It was the articulate toll of tiny bells. But then Gordon bent over like he was going to puke, but instead he burst out laughing. Okay, I didn't think that was actually going to happen, he said, his eyes wild. I thought there was something in what y'all were saying, of course, but this is... He trailed off and shook his head. Just give me a second while I put my head back together. I knew exactly what he meant. Knowing is one thing. Being there is something else. And now it was clear that Gordon had been half playing along the whole time. Skeptical, curious. But now, he was a believer. Still, we couldn't afford to get lost in the awe. This was supposed to be a quick trip. We pulled ourselves out of the fog and got to work. I knelt at the edge of the shore, scooping up a quart of the chiming liquid, packed a few handfuls of the strange soil and the delicate fungal lace into containers, tucking it all carefully away. I could see where our footprints had torn through the matrix, where we'd disturbed what no one else ever had. Even more surreal, we could see Grandpa's faint, brittle tracks from his last visit. Otherwise, the place was untouched, a virgin planet. Grandpa had set up his tripod and was already taking pictures. The light was so dim that every shot required a long exposure, but he knew how to work in the dark. I had no doubt he would capture it. Drawn by the eerie beauty, I wandered off briefly, flashlight in hand. Couldn't help it. And I was wishing we had some way of knowing where we were. Maybe we could analyze the stars in Grandpa's photos later, match them to constellations if any matched, but the odds are we'd need help for that, maybe serious help. I was starting to get a bit nervous, and we'd agreed not to stay long, but my worry was for naught. The engine performed just as smoothly on the return trip. One moment we were there, the next we were back, standing in the gallery like we'd never left. Gordon bolted upstairs, eager to see the sun, I figured, but he opened the door to a dark house. In an instant, his confident, cool air just vanished. Did we just fuck up space-time? And he started pacing with his hands crushing his forehead. Why is it dark? I think we just fucked up space-time. Grandpa chuckled behind him. Relax, Gordon. I forgot to mention there is a time difference between here and there. It's still Friday. After a while, Gordon calmed down, and then he stayed the night. We stayed up late talking about things supernatural and mundane. We started to dream that night of what we would do and where we would go next. When the conversation finally began to slow, Grandpa turned to Gordon, his voice calm and measured. "Gordon," he said, "you understand the fundamentals of this better than we do. Would you help us figure out exactly what we discovered, or what we're working with? I guess what I mean is, would you help me find Sylvie?" Gordon nodded, serious now. "Absolutely." On Saturday morning, the cafe buzzed with chatter. Burning conversations, just loud enough to rise over Learn to Fly by the Foo Fighters coming from Hazel's radio, then Jay-Z's Big Pimpin'. The sheriff had ordered heavy equipment from the county, big tractors with massive buckets. They'd rolled through town early that morning on oversized trucks bound for the Braden grounds. Their plan, I guessed, was to tear up the site, search for bodies and evidence. It made sense. They'd just found a missing person from 10 years ago. It stood to reason they'd look for more. And the sheriff's brother had been among the missing from that same incident. I kind of wanted to be there when they unearthed that chamber, but we couldn't look too eager. Sheriff Hollis knew Grandpa and I had a habit of digging into things. If he was feeling talkative, he might wander over and answer our questions outright. He wanted answers too, and so far, he hadn't dismissed our sound theory. At the cafe, we were introducing Gordon to our Mill Creek friends, and we all dug into another one of Hazel's wonderful meals. And again, I felt the warmth in Hazel's interactions with Grandpa. Unspoken things were passing between them. "Hey, Everett, I've been thinking about Sylvie and these disappearances," Gordon started between bites. "And I got some embryonic ideas." He spoke slowly, like someone searching for edge pieces to start a puzzle without the box for reference. Phase cancellation happens when two waves of the same frequency meet and they're out of sync. The peaks and valleys cancel each other out. But what if in Mill Creek it don't just cancel sound? What if something bigger gets erased? You all ever hear about those new noise-canceling headphones? Well, they work by playing the opposite phase of background noise coming into them, mostly erasing it. But if you do that with something elemental, something like that marrow of sound, you could be erasing something bigger. Resonance plays a big part in physics, too. Electromagnetism, mechanics, vibration, quantum physics, and it interacts with biological functions. The marrow of sound might create a self-sustaining resonance that keeps amplifying and distorting reality. Like a feedback loop, but instead of sound feeding into itself and screaming like the usual, Hendrix, Moore, Morello, it's space and time and people. His eyes now looked haunted as he explored those possibilities. Now imagine this, he continued. When an object vibrates in response to a specific frequency, think of an opera singer smashing glass by hitting a note between G4 and C8. He paused again, giving the idea a moment to brew. That marrow of sound, if it is this creation thread and has God mojo, if someone introduced it to a frequency matching human consciousness, it could create a self-sustaining feedback loop. And this ain't only theory, it's like self-sustained oscillations in aeroacoustic systems where the sound waves are kept alive by themselves without anything keeping them up. And if this loop became real, like a physical thing, its energy could get stronger. Human neural patterns might become entrained and bound in a cycle, unable to move forward or backward. The marrow could hijack a person's reality and suspend them, echoing and re-echoing their consciousness. The marrow, he muttered. The marrow of sound is the anchor of this equation. If it really is the I am, the God said and let there be, and it was, then it's the thread holding the fabric together. And if you pull on the thread the wrong way, oh boy, you all need to be careful with this. And maybe some of those people were unraveled or phase canceled. Maybe some of them are stuck in a standing loop in some quantum feedback realm. And they could still be there, frozen in the same moment they vanished, like they ain't been allowed to move on. Hazel's radio was playing a song from REM's Document record when we finished eating our breakfast and headed out the door. The song stuck in my head, and the words felt a little too apt. We drove out to the Bradens, this time pulling into their driveway instead of parking at the trailhead. Sheriff Hollis and Bud Colton were presiding over the excavation. They'd already unloaded their big machines from the semi-truck trailer and were about to get started. "Everett, you know you can't be here," the sheriff said, walking toward our car. "This is a crime scene. I know your curiosity brought you here, but now is not the time. There's so much going on with this, whatever it is, Everett. The feds might even get involved. You heard we found Eddie, I assume?" Grandpa said he had. "Well, Eddie, he's got some of these, Look, Everett, I just can't bring you into this," he said firmly, then paused before continuing. "Look, you gotta go. The ground's probably unstable. They dug tunnels all over the place. We'll be using ground-penetrating radar to locate more. I'll talk to you sometime soon, my friend," he said, placing his hand on Grandpa's shoulder. "It's good to see you, Orin," he shouted over Grandpa's shoulder. "I trust your school is going well?" I told him it was, but technically I'd just dropped out, and that was a whole can of worms I didn't want to open. Grandpa and I headed back to the truck to join Gordon and head home to talk about all of this. It's the end of the world as we know it. I guess I feel fine. One thing I've learned from studying music is that ideas need time to knit themselves into real inspiration. Sure, scales, jamming, and practice lay most of the groundwork, but you've got to step away sometimes, escape the bog of details, and let all the ingredients simmer into something tasty. I practiced my ass off to master the bass guitar, but my biggest leaps, the things that really changed my style, happened after I set my manic practice aside and focused on something else for a while. Fresh perspectives come from stepping far enough away from a thing to see the whole shape. And usually, when I zoom back in, it's fun again. At the moment, Grandpa and I both needed that kind of a break. A chance to leave Mill Creek behind and let its jagged edges soften, macerate. The marrow of sound had become our obsession, but obsessing wasn't helping. Clarity wasn't coming from staring at the same tangled threads. I'm terrible at letting work rest, but I'd heard somewhere that perfection is the enemy of progress. Gordon, of course, was already part of our makeshift tribe. In just a few days, we'd forged a bond that felt solid and real. But sending him off felt strange. He had his own work to get back to, and things to deal with back home. The morning he left, we all sat down for one last breakfast at Hazel's. Gordon smiled, a little reluctant but determined. "I got some stuff to handle," he said. "But I'm in this, y'all. Whatever you need, I'm just a phone call away, and when the time's right, I'll be back, okay?" We shook hands, made promises to stay sharp and keep digging. His leaving wasn't an end, it was just a pause, and we knew it. But still, we needed more than just Gordon's mystic sound wizardry. That's when I thought of Patty. Honestly, I was almost always thinking of Patty. I wasn't exactly sure which of her many talents would come in handy, but she was one of the smartest people that I knew. I missed her, and I was stoked for Grandpa to meet her. So we decided on a road trip. It was the perfect excuse to reconnect, share some music, brainstorm out loud, and maybe get hands-on with our research. We would go and look at old spacecraft, try to talk to some of the people who were involved in making it, or at least the people who studied it. Then we could go check on Patty in Colorado. The internet wasn't what it is now. There's no AI assistance or easy access to expert papers. We had a couple of books, one about rocket design and another of space vehicle design from the early 90s. NASA's website had a few research papers, but the real technical gold from MIT or Caltech was limited to students and faculty. So we decided to chase down knowledge the old way. We'd go to museums, archives. Maybe we could talk to some people at the corporate offices. We decided to spare Grandpa's old Ford and my beat-up Honda, the Strain, so we rented an all-wheel drive Subaru Outback from Amy's Auto Rental in Rosemere. Couple $100 a week, full coverage included. We packed the Resonance engine, samples and photos from the Crystal Shore, notebooks, and instruments. Grandpa brought his Taylor acoustic, and I grabbed my jazz bass. In the back of my mind, I'd hoped to trade up if I spotted something special on the road. Jazz basses are great, but after seeing Gordon's Babies, I was craving something more personal, more extraordinary. Boeing's headquarters was in Everett, Washington, just outside of Seattle, about 5 hours away. They built the first stage of the Saturn V rocket for Apollo and were contractors on the International Space Station, so if anyone around here had aerospace wisdom to share, it might be them. We booked a hotel near their complex, hoping to run into engineers or scientists who might be coming and going. Maybe they could clue us in. But after 2 days of polite brush-offs from office staff and a factory tour that felt more like PR, I started thinking we'd screwed up, wasted our time. We weren't journalists, students, or even engineers, just two guys chasing half-whispered secrets in sound waves. I didn't want to admit it to Grandpa, but frustration was setting in. So we decided to accept a side quest and check out a brand new museum. Not exactly tied to our research, but it was about sound, and that was enough to get my attention. Microsoft co-founder Paul Allen had just opened the Experience Music Project in Seattle, dedicated to the city's legendary music scene. Of course, we had to see the Jimi Hendrix exhibit. They'd built this wild 2-story tornado made entirely of guitars. Kind of cool, I guess, but still I couldn't help thinking about all the broke-ass kids who would kill for just one of those axes to bash away on. But the museum was a hell of a lot better tribute to Hendrix than that dumb-heated rock at the zoo. Seattle had always been weird about Hendrix. Like, they wanted to erase the parts of him they didn't like, the drug stuff, the wild psychedelic side. But Jimmy was more than that. He was a pioneer. He shaped how we understood sound, perception, the edges of reality, stuff that felt a little too close to the weird vibrations we'd been chasing. I half joked that Hendrix deserved his own psychedelic theme park, with tickets printed on droplets of Augustus Owsley Stanley III's Purple Haze Acid, or White Lightning. Because maybe the way he melted those notes together wasn't just music. It was resonance also. It was a thread that pulled at the fabric of perception. On the third morning, I woke up late to another cacophonous downpour, pretty standard in a place that sees over 200 rainy days a year. Grandpa had already gone to get the free continental breakfast. I rubbed the sleep from my eyes and stared at our growing pile of notes on the desk. We'd collected some pictures that might help us once we got into the design and construction, but right then they felt useless. No big leads, no real breakthroughs, just a growing stack of questions. How do we generate and store power in space? Can we do solar? Which alloy do we use for the hull? How do we shield ourselves from radiation? What about heat? When in doubt, I did what I always did. I picked up my bass. I set up the resonance engine on the desk and switched it on and plugged in my combo amp. Not because I thought it would actually solve anything, but because I needed to clear my head. I started playing quietly, warming up and letting my fingers wander. A slow melody emerged. A song about lovers who lost each other, but left behind clues from the books they adored. The Hitchhiker's Guide. Arthur's journey through the stars. The heart of gold, not pints in bar. You lost your own, what will you do? All the answers end up 42. Les Miserables, Revival, Bleak House, Black House, The Count of Monte Cristo. Ed Dantes and Mercedes. Broken 19, then plot revenge. Hope and wait is what you've heard. Wisdom in these simple words. The Father Brown mysteries, needful things. The quotes were all breadcrumbs leading them back to each other. And if you read between the lines, then maybe you could see the breadcrumbs that I left behind, so you could follow me. Tolkien and Lewis for tea. After a moment, I thought about making the lyrics a bit more risque somehow. They were lovers after all, but I was still just warming up and not really in the zone. And then came a knock at my door. Sorry to be bothering you, friend, but I am hearing the music, and it is wonderful. I can listen, yes? And this was such a rare thing that I should have bottled it. If you're a musician, you know. People usually just tell you to shut the fuck up. This woman was clearly one of God's chosen. I invited her in, but left the door to the courtyard open. Propriety. Please go on, son. I am enjoying this much, she said. Oh, and pardon me, I've gotten wet in the rain. She had an accent reminiscent of Bjork from the Sugar Cubes, with short auburn hair, really expensive-looking clothes, and a keen spark in her eyes. Elated to have an audience, I played her a love song I had written for Patty, followed by a speculative piece about exploring the cosmos. The first song made her stare in a way that made me a bit uncomfortable. I was young and a bit dim about women, but there was an unmistakable longing in her gaze. The second song brought a total shift. She was engrossed, like I was helping her solve a riddle in her own work. Her focus was on me, and it was intense. Beautiful, she said when I was finished. I asked what she did and where she was from. She told me she was a senior account executive for Demas Ventures, a space technology company based in Iceland that supplied radiation-absorbing ceramics to NASA, Boeing, and Roscosmos. You're here for business, then? I have meetings about ongoing support for the space shuttle program, yes, and ISS. We also work with them on parts for the lunar lander. I asked if she was into music or played anything herself. She confessed a love for System of a Down, Jennifer Lopez, and the Flaming Lips, and mentioned that she played a traditional Icelandic drone instrument called a langspill. And I learned to play the melodies of Nirvana on it, she said. Excusing myself to take a piss, I suddenly remembered the resonance engine was still on. I didn't want to draw attention to it, so I left it alone, but when I returned, she and the resonance engine were gone.
Thanks for listening to Waveglass. Written and read for you by Aaron Lewis Gibson. Copyright 2025. All rights reserved. No part of this podcast may be copied, shared, or rebroadcast without permission, except for brief excerpts used in reviews or commentary. If you're enjoying the ride, tell a friend, leave a review, or just hit subscribe. See you next time.